At this time, I'd like to call to order the March 21st meeting of the Sierra Madre Planning Commission, and we'll begin with roll call.
Chair Hutt, Vice Chair Dennison, Commissioners Catalano,
Here.
Desai,
Here.
Hefsner,
Here.
and Spears.
Present. Okay, next up is approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay. Next up is the approval of the minutes of March 7th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of March 7th?
No
I wasn't
objections.
here, so are we going to have enough
So
to?
that means you could be totally objective.
We could postpone approval of the minutes till we have,
Okay, we'll postpone that. Do we need to take a vote to postpone it?
yes.
No. Yes? No?
Okay.
Okay, you're okay? All right, then it'll be postponed. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not listed on tonight's agenda. The Planning Commission welcomes your participation and input, and when addressing the Planning Commission, please begin by stating your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to no more than 4 minutes in order to provide for an orderly meeting.
So no one.
Okay, seeing no one, then we will close the audience comments and we will go to staff.
Yes, we have a continued project, Hillside Development Permit 1203, Conditional Use Permit 1210, which is a request to allow construction of a two-story, 3,528 square foot single-family residence on the property located at 638 Baldwin Court, Lot 22. This is part of the Stonegate Development property. Claire Lynn, who is the associate planner, will be making the presentation this evening. The applicant is also here, and he also has a PowerPoint presentation that he would like to make. So we would need to load that up as well. And they have also brought a model for your review.
Okay.
Good evening, chairs and commissioners. The Planning Commission will be reviewing a hillside development permit and a conditional use permit for the property located at 638 Baldwin Court, also known as Lot 21, that is continued from the December 6th meeting. The applicant has returned with revised plans to address the Commission's concern. The architect has proposed and described the new design with an architectural style to be a contemporary interpretation of a traditional style with a distinct design palette that is differentiated from the adjacent properties. The bulk and mass are also revised to concentrate majority of the program to the north side of the property to minimize impact on the house to the south, and proposing the massing is related to the contour of the street and de-emphasize the garage as a dominant feature. Roof massing has also been reduced and replaced by flat and low-pitched roofs. The southwest corner is designed to read as a single-story element where the second floor is recessed further back. North elevation are incorporated with modulated facade, which are the horizontal sidings and stucco. This project is a code-compliant project, and the project information is revised to be consistent with the new design. Footprint of the building is increased to 2,181 square feet. The second floor is set back 32 feet 10 inches from the front property line, and the side yard setback is of the second floor is 21 feet 1 inches from the north. Here are the revised site plan showing that the redesigned L-shaped footprint, and the exterior stairs are removed as the applicant eliminates the basement from the previous design. Revised first floor plan, the applicant also eliminates the formal foyer study room on the first floor. The proposed plan is responding to the contour of the street as it steps back from the street. The garage is relocated further back east by 3 feet 5 inches and recessed by 16 inches. Revised second floor plan showing that the southwest corner is recessed further back 12 feet 6 inches. Conceptual roof plan showing that there is gable, shed roof, and flat roof. Sections of the proposed building showing the roof construction and also the massing in relationship to the site. West elevation on the top, which is north street-facing elevation. And on the bottom would be the north elevation. East elevation and the south elevations. Here are the color renderings of the elevations. And you can see the shed roof and the exposed rafters and the flat roof. Also the stucco finish on the facade. And elevations incorporating different finish materials. And here are the colors and materials that will be used for this project. The architect is also bringing a larger size samples for you to view. Photo montage illustrations has been revised to include the adjacent house to the south and also the Macomber cabin to the north. 3D models showing the view from the southwest. And here's the view showing from the north and an aerial view. Rendering of the street-facing facade showing the modulations and different application style. A few design concerns are that the proposed design does not appear to have a discernible style, and the extensive massing, modulations, and changing roof type from a straight parapet to exposed rafter tail appear unusual for the single-family residence proposed in this community. The various roof type, gable, shed roof, and the flat roof do not appear to integrate with each other to form a coherent design. And the facade needs further study on the solid to void relationship and fenestration. Lastly, the application of multiple building materials on several different planes does not appear to enhance the overall design of the building. Hillside development permit and conditional use permit findings have to be made in order to approve the project. These findings are in the packet for Planning Commission to make decision. An alternative before Planning Commission this evening is to approve the project or approve the project with modification or deny the project and identifying findings that Commission feels cannot be made and the basis for rejecting those findings, or continue the project and provide staff and applicant with direction. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission continue the project for the applicant to provide more information consistent with the staff comments and Planning Commission direction. that concludes my presentation, and the applicant has a PowerPoint slideshow.
Any questions for staff?
I'd like to know, you made reference just 1 minute ago to a recommendation to continue based in part on some staff issues. And do you want to go into those?
I think that was
That
what the
was,
PowerPoint, the concept of
Design
the
concerns.
design concerns.
Yes.
Oh, okay, those aren't from us
And
last.
those are the ones that are mentioned in the
Yes.
report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would the applicant like to present?
Take a moment to load up the PowerPoint presentation. Ready?
Good evening. Again, my name's Everardo Garcia with LCRA in Pasadena. First, I would like to thank Claire for her presentation. She was pretty thorough, so I won't go over a lot of the issues she went over. I do want to address first our response to the comments we heard here in our last meeting, and then address some of the design concerns proposed in the staff report. First of all, one of the main things we heard from our last hearing was the massing of the building. And what we did was we did go back and take a look at the project and look at the whole plan in itself and really studied the plan and see how that could change in order to work with pushing more of the mass towards the north side and opening up opportunities for the plan. So what we've done is, first of all, created this L-shaped plan, which allows for the majority of the building to really align with the north elevation. This also allows for that north elevation from the north to be seen really. It's sheltered by the fact that we do have some grade on our site. Our pad is about 6 feet below the adjacent driveway that, let's see. Can get this to work. There we go. There we go. We do have about a 6-foot grade change here, which really allows for this elevation to be really sheltered to a degree, so you don't see the full extent of the 2-story wall here. The other opportunity that arose with this floor plan was that it allowed us to open up and use this corner as a nice rear yard courtyard, and also allowed for the opportunity for better privacy between this house and the house just south of this. So you have less windows facing that house, and also you have more distance between the two houses when you come further towards the back. One great thing about the plan now as well, it's actually a thinner plan, which helps with our roof and also allows for natural air and ventilation on both the first and second floors. Most of the bedrooms now have at least two-sided ventilation, which is a great benefit that arrived through this plan change. One other issue that was brought up was the opportunity to reduce the mass of the roof. This is the original elevation that we had. With what we had was a large sloping roof and then a little shed dormer popping up. And what we did was study the opportunity to break up the massing of the house, created a 1-story element at the southeastern corner, which helps to build up the mass of the house. So as you drive up Baldwin, you're really looking at a smaller 1-story mass, and then it starts to build up to the 2nd story. What we also did was look at the material palette, which was another comment we heard. And it was mentioned that the materials should differentiate the house from the adjacent houses. So what we did on this one was play with materials. So we introduced stucco and siding, and did a study to try to play with the two materials, and in doing so allows us to differentiate ourselves from the house just south of us, which is all siding, as well as the cabin next to us, which is also further up the street, which is also just siding. So this creates its own identity within the street scene. And one of the final comments was the north elevation and how to break that elevation up from a strong two-story mass. And what we did study the opportunity to break the planes, create some modulation on the elevation. We do have a one-story element and some roof, and then we have second-story masses that undulate on the wall, as well as the addition of the material to help break down the massing of the house. Now, due to the topography, we're looking at really about the adjacent property is really about here. So when you're driving down Baldwin, you're really just seeing this upper portion of the house, which helps to really hide the mass of the house. Now, in response to the design comments we heard from staff, one of the items was that the style did not have a discernible architectural style, which overall architectural styles is kind of an interesting thing. Most of the labels for architectural style don't happen until later on, kind of looking back into architecture. What we're proposing is a contemporary interpretation of kind of a traditional clapboard house. And I wanted to show some examples of this type of architecture, which shows playing with the roof forms, introducing shed roofs together with some flat massing in order to really reinterpret that style and bring it into more of a contemporary feel, and really to be able to call it a style. At this point, it's considered really a contemporary architecture. And there really is no particular styles these days. I mean, really, mid-century is another label that's been given to kind of architecture during the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. But yet, even that encompasses a wide range of architecture. So this was really just showing that this is just an interpretation contemporary for today's way of life, and showing how the play of materials can occur within that. Another item that was brought up was the changes in roof appear unusual for single-family residences. Actually, when you look at our plan and when you look at our model as well, we really have one main roof form, which is the big gable in the back. And then we have the addition of smaller plug-in shed forms to the mass. So I would say it's very in keeping with traditional architecture, especially residential architecture, and utilizing the main roof form and then kind of additive smaller roof forms to it. There was a comment about these roof types not integrated into a coherent design. Our view on this was the way we approached the house is we organized these shed forms around these central stucco masses in order to create a composition, and then added some additional lower stucco masses to form more of a modern composition. we feel the masses kind of play off on the traditional architecture, and also they allow it to really follow the slope of the site. We do have these forms kind of building up as you go up Baldwin, and then these guys also moving towards the back as the site does raise behind it. I wanted to show this kind of rendering composite to show as you're approaching from Baldwin, you start seeing these forms building up to the hillside. So that was kind of our play as well, and how we studied it to allow it to build up the massing. And this one-story element, you can see also becomes a friendlier element as you drive up. It's a low form, more pedestrian level as it builds up to just a second floor. And then I believe the final element that was mentioned was about the different building materials that were proposed. And what we did with the building materials is really help to accentuate the different masses. In using the building material, which is either siding or stucco, we do turn the material around the masses. We have the material terminate on inside corners, so it accentuates the sense of a solid mass and these forms coming together to form this particular architecture. And that is our response. I think we enjoyed looking at this house, and I think the result of the comments that we received from the commission last time helped to create, I believe, an architecture that fits into the site much better and grows into the existing slopes of the property. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Also, I'd like to point out we do have a SketchUp version of this, so we can actually rotate and look at different views and from different angles, if you'd like that on screen as well, while you deliberate.
That would be helpful. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
No.
One question, sir. There was no thought of using a basement in this design?
We decided to eliminate the basement. We felt the opportunity to use the new L-shaped plan allowed us to still have the footage that would make the house feasible and functional. But yet it allowed really the site to open up a little bit more and create some nice courtyard in the back without having to go underground on this particular house.
Okay.
Okay, at this point in time, we will open up to the public. If the public wants to make comments, address the commission on this application.
Do you want to see those rotations first?
I think they're going to stay up there, so.
We're going to have it for our conversations, but it's there for.
Would you like to see them before you make your comments?
Whatever. Because I'm genuinely appreciative of the energy the applicant put into reworking the plan. Genuinely appreciative of the time and energy and thoughtfulness. I wish I could be more enthusiastic about the outcome. One of the things that concerns me is that when one stands on the lot immediately to the south of this house and looks up at least at the story poles and the way the masses strike one standing on a lot that's maybe 6 feet below the level of this lot, the sense of obstruction of any kind of contact with the natural environment, with the mountains in the back and so on, it's just completely wiped out. And I found it this afternoon and before, really quite imposing. And I can't imagine quite being in the house below, looking out the windows and getting that kind of view. I also, frankly, find that to the eye, and therefore even to what is stirred up inside of me, the vast variety of shapes and masses and the sort of continual changing of colors are simply confusing to the eye and sort of send me all over the place. I could wish that in designing homes for a location that could intrinsically have been so beautiful, that somehow the attention would be more accommodative, more sort of tuned in with the natural environment, and less inclined simply to have one's eye jumping around the design of the building itself. Thanks.
Just for the record, could you state your name?
Sorry, Marguerite Schuster. By the way, there's no C in it. Minutes always have a C. 675 Mount Wilson Trail.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the Planning Commission on this project? Okay, seeing no one, we'll bring it back to the commissioners.
Okay.
Anybody want to start? Bill?
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I think when I looked at this, my comment was about having the opportunity for a cottage to sort of look more like cottage-like by bringing it more underground. That's sort of what I thought was going to happen. Now we've got this sort of eclectic, modern contemporary design. And again, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to move the massing to the direction we did, but when you look from both sides, it's the roof contours and the way they've designed, even the flatness of the roof actually makes it's as if the mass of the house on the second story is even more noticeable, because the cottage roof brought the roof line down, even though we had this overly massive roof that was cottage-like, but didn't really, all you saw was shingles. Now you see these eclectic, articulated, and variegated convolutions with the roof style, but on the north side you see this, it's really a massive wall. They put the mass up there, but now when you get along that side, there's some articulation. They kind of try and break it up at the roof lines, but it still looks massive. And I was kind of hoping there'd be more of a simplistic cottage design with a lot of that room underground, so I was kind of disappointed that the basement left. I mean, I like some of the designs he made showing the contemporary styles, but there was more symmetry to them. This is, I mean, sort of maybe purposefully asymmetric, but in that sense, I think I agreed with Marguerite that there's a little bit too much busyness to it. So I think I like it a little more simplistic. And of course, I like the cottage design, but that's my own preference.
So here comes the architects. It's an architectural style. Would you like to go first?
Or
Which one?
I can go.
Okay.
Eduardo, you might want to come up here just because I kind of want to have a conversation more than just kind of bark out what I think. But, part of me, when you were presenting, I kind of felt like we're looking at two different projects, because what I'm seeing is definitely a project there isn't a lot of coherency in it. And I know what can happen is you set yourself up into that box that this is an stylistic house, and it's kind of traditional meets contemporary, and we're trying to marry the two, and that's a tough box, because what you're looking at here is something that it doesn't really have an identity. It's kind of like in between two worlds. It's sort of traditional or classic, with the exposed rafter tails, and then the horizontal siding with the corner trim. But you've got anodized aluminum windows, and then smooth trowel stucco like boxes. And so, when I look at it, it looks like the traditional house was there, and then you came back and did this renovation or addition, and you added sort of these contemporary elements, like that front, whatever it is, the great room, or in the corner, and then you changed out the garage roll up to the glass anodized, modern thing. It doesn't fit together. It doesn't like work. And I do disagree with the fact like, well, there isn't really a style, and like a house is like its style is determined post construction or after 50 years, like to me this was an opportunity where you should have gone with the modern, like make this a really beautiful modern like mid-century. And when we say mid-century, I know it spans like whatever you want, like the 50s, 60s, and there's from googie texture to like classic Palm Springs mid-century, but like what's understood today is sort of the mid-century modern, sort of that Eames architecture. You can look at tons of architects who did it very successfully in the turn of the century, like in the 50s. But to me, there's an opportunity here to like push it one way or the other. Like this kind of in between is, I think it's not working for you here. Like it's like this house is afraid to be modern. Like if you want to take it modern, be modern. Like why not show like an eyebrow roof coming across, where the garage is, or something like that, or even a hipped roof where you get like a flat line across and sort of a low pitched roof coming in, and the top like these rectilinear platforms. It's kind of like what you'd see in a shopping center where you'd get these storefronts all lined up, and some of them would come out and they'd have siding on it, and then the piece behind it would be a stucco sort of marquee wall, and then you'd have this thing like it's like a lot going on there, and it's like I get that's kind of what you were after, but to me it actually looks like there's more mass there kind of coming up in the middle, like when you look at the side elevation, it doesn't look like it's stepping back. Like this part right here, like on the south, yeah, it's stepping back because you got this little shed roof on, I believe that's the bathroom, or I'm not sure what that piece is programmatically, but then this 2-story wall right here, it's not stepping back because it's that front piece is really small relative to the mass behind it. Like it's just like there, and the funny part is the plan that you developed here. Like I think it's really clean and it really works. Like it's this bar and this piece coming out, and you create this sort of open space, this relief space on the south, and sort of the front starts to make sense because it's really just this bar. Like it would have been cool to see that long bar accentuated with like a butterfly roof or something, like a long, really low gable, instead of like these pieces that then make it look like it's fatter than it really is, because that bar is really skinny and that's gorgeous. But it's because you got locked into this two styles and they're trying to marry and meet, instead of going like, let's make this a really beautiful contemporary or mid-century house. Like, let's just go for it. Like, and from the sales side, like, I mean, that'll sell all day long. Like people love that. It's crazy. I mean,
people are starting to become a little warmer to mid-century, which is nice.
Well, I would say more than warmer. I would say it's hot. Like, I mean, I do that all day long. And I mean, those things, like, I'm not trying to be crass, but they do fly off the shelf. I mean, like there's an appreciation for that style. Like a lot of times we're scared to design that in this sort of venue because we think it's not going to appeal to as many buyers. But like they're sophisticated and they can understand like that's a beautiful modern house. Like, and that whole adage, like to me, I look at this and I go, this is what people point to and go like, well, that's like a contemporary house, but it's not like well designed. It's kind of a little bit of everything, and that's like the knock on why people like a Craftsman or like a bungalow, because it's strong in its identity and it's understandable. Like they get that, like this is like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because it's kind of like in between. Like,
well,
I was staring at this and I'm going like, Eduardo, like go for it. Like, why are we like like, you know, it was all I could do to not take out my marker and do like.
I mean, our take on it is we did want to kind of evolve the traditional home and kind of grow from it to kind of break it apart. I think from our past meetings, we're also a little hesitant on the reaction of a more contemporary house within these environs. So we tried to create an architecture that was kind of growing into a more contemporary, but without breaking out, just because of some of the comments we heard from the neighbors as well, you know, and their reaction to something that could be considered too contemporary.
Well, I mean, yes and no, but I think this lot too that you have right here is sandwiched between Macomber and like the beautiful Craftsman that you designed on 21, right, or 22, right below. Like, to do a more contemporary, you know, that's warm, that has clean lines, like, is a win-win because it differentiates itself from the cabin, but it also differentiates itself from the neighbor next down below, which has siding as well. You know, it's got all the same features. You
Right.
know?
And that's what we were attempting to do, to create something that wasn't traditional, because we do have, you know, the cabin next to us and then the house on lot 22. So it was trying to break into a style that kind of evolved the architecture.
I mean, you can even look at your model, which is great, by the way, and that's 22, right, in the middle.
Correct.
Like, and that's ultimately I'm sure that's close to the design that was approved, right?
That was the model that.
Okay, so that,
we
like,
just
you
used the
can
same
see
site.
how its plan and sort of its form are simpatico, like you can understand that, and it looks skinny. I mean, it's layering up inward, you know, and just looking at the model, like, that looks tight, like it's figured out. And then I look over at 2021, the project here, it's just got all these pieces like popping up, like it looks fatter and more massive than the plan that it's built on. Like, the plan you showed, like, it's clean, and this thing, like, with those pieces popping up, like, they don't work. Like, it doesn't work. Like, it's not pretty, and it's not clean, and it's not like, and to me, it looks more massive than what the plan really is giving us, you know, and that's doing you a disservice, because there's, you know, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't pass the eye test to me on that. So, I mean, you know, we can go over, like, whether, if it was more contemporary, whether that limits your market and all this stuff, but, you know, I think it's kind of like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, and be in two camps, and I think you got to go either way and really develop that. I think you have an opportunity to do that. It's not like you've got this plan that's helping you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you kind of, when you extruded it and elevated it and created the mass, like, something got lost in translation there, you know. And I'm not even going to talk about the materials, because I think, like, you know, you can do a bunch of tricks to clean that up as well. Like, on a house like this that's trending towards more contemporary, like, I wouldn't have this exposed rafter tails. Like, I would make that nice, clean stuccoed eaves with, you know, a nice fascia, you know, to really get that line, rather than this, like, really traditional broken up exposed rafter tails, you know. But in the window placement, like, you have an opportunity here to really gang up windows and fenestration at corners and kind of open corners up. And you did that on the front where the bedroom is.
We did those on
like that corner, right? But then you broke it with like the siding band, you know, that everything terminates into. Like, that should be the same black corner, like the windows, you know, and it should look like that's all part of that. And like the siding, and this is something we did on that house on Carter, where, you know, it was going more mid-century and more modern. Like, get rid of those corner terminations. Like, the siding should continue, you know, like around the corners, you know. And there's ways to do that, but anyway. I've taken up too much of my time. Go ahead.
Just as a quick aside to what I was really going to talk about, this is in a high hazard fire area. I don't think that those rafter tails and the exposed treatment under there is going to fly anyway.
Unless
That would be
they're
heavy
4 by.
timber.
They'd have to be 4 by minimum.
If they'd be four by
in
and
order to make
But
that work.
The underside would have to be like you'd have to put dense glass or something.
Right.
Yeah, because that'd be 1 hour rated.
they're going to be pretty heavy looking. You may want to think about that. What I really wanted to talk about goes back to what Ms. Schuster was referring to, as well as some of the other comments here. The idea of the views out. You know, it's like somebody said once that they stopped building condominiums in Colorado when the developers realized that people wanted to look at the mountains and not look at other condominiums. That's when it slowed down. Okay, we kind of have a problem here, but a lot of it is in the basic cooking of that whole site development, and one can only hope that there's going to at this point that views off at different angles are also going to be rewarding to people, because looking straight up the hill, you're always looking at another house and another house and another house. So the ability to see things off at angles is also, you know, something that has to be considered. Look around the story poles, not just. Yeah, you want to look at the story. When you do look at the story poles and when you do look at that house, it's just jiggling all over the place. You know, part of it's the materials, part of it are all these little shapes and everything, and but it's like, you know, a little kid. Would you stop jiggling? Right? You know, it's. I wish that. Everybody could see, maybe some of you are familiar with it. There's a development way up the California coast from back in the 60s called Sea Ranch. I know you know Sea Ranch, and you know Sea Ranch.
I've been there, yeah.
Okay.
South of
Okay.
Walla.
Anybody who hasn't, I'd like to suggest that you go and find. There's a lot online about it, and you find some images of the original condominium developments at Sea Ranch. This is right in a very, very wild part of the Northern California coast, and some of the buildings are pretty near the water, but they're very homogeneous in their. They're pretty dramatic forms. The forms really talk about the landscape, and they talk about the winds there, and they're all just materially they're all very simple redwood too, and they fit. They just are so comfortable in that landscape. There's no nervousness about them at all. And I sure would like to. Manish, you're very correct that these are really very simple forms, and I don't even understand architectonically what the real masses are inside here because of all these funny little things jiggling all over it. I don't really see the need for the two different siding materials, at least not the way they're used, because it's kind of like a checkerboard. But we're creating an awful lot of visual distraction here, which is totally unnecessary to do. And I think that if it were calmer the way Sea Ranch is calmer, that you'd have a better opportunity to look at a balance of what are the buildings and what's the environment that they're in. But, you know, we sometimes tend to want to draw a lot of stuff that isn't necessary so that there'll be something showing in the pictures. And I think that we really need to evaluate things in terms of, well, what's the form really going to be in the end? And not just, can I put a lot of stuff on this piece of paper to, right? Because if you were to look at a color rendering at this stage of the game of Sea Ranch, it would look like blah, just one or two colors. And when it's there in that environment, it's beautiful, and that's all it wants to be. And so this has to calm down a lot. And I would like to see the form simplified and reflective of what those volumes are. I liked your comments with respect to that. That's about it. That's about it. Everybody go look at Sea Ranch.
Okay. So, I was not here for the first presentation of this project, and so I went back and watched the video, and then I saw the drawings of this project, and I thought I'd gone to the wrong video because they're very different. We're almost like we're starting over again with a new project. Initially, I was like Bill. I was a little disappointed that you chose to eliminate the basement, because I think that put pressure on you to add more elements up in the air, and the basement would have given you more wiggle room in terms of what you needed to expand in terms of massing. You could put a lot underground, and then things would appear to be not as big as they were. I applaud you, first of all, for the model. It's we need more of these things. They're very, very helpful, and so good job on that. I also applaud you for moving the massing to the north side of the lot, because you're taking advantage of the change in elevation, and a lot can happen over there, and it will not be as present. You did articulate that side, and that's fine. And, you know, I applaud you for, you know, one of the requests you got was to break up the elevation, and you certainly did. Although I have to agree with Manish in that you want some kind of contemporary style, and this town does have and is building more contemporary buildings. If you go down Grandview, there's two new ones on the south side. But what I'm aware of is that they have strong horizontal lines. The eaves get covered or masked, and the horizontal lines give the appearance of a lower and wider building as opposed to a taller and more massive building. I don't think your building materials help you. I think the solid stucco gives it too much weight and pressure, and it makes it jump out at you that, you know, this thing is big. I think that with a more clever choice of materials on the outside, you can mask the fact that you know, how big is this thing that I'm looking at. I also agree with Joe is that this thing is, you know, coming and going at the same time, and it's you know, it's not a calm looking building, and maybe that's, you know, what you wanted, but I'm not sure that it does you any favors in terms of design. I would agree with Manisha's that a modern building would be acceptable. It's not. We are not wedded to craftsman bungalows going up and down that hill. Where the town has eclectic architecture, and the right one there would work. They are all over town, and you can drive around town and look at them. I do applaud you, because one of the things that they asked you to do is put the one-story element in front, and you have done that, and you did set back the entrance for the garage as requested. The problem is that these things come in and out at the same time, and it's a little disconcerting. So I also applaud you on the floor plan. I think the floor plan is fine. I liked it, but we don't pass a lot of judgment on what happens inside the walls, so, you know, but good for you. So, you know, I think the basement would have given you more flexibility in your design. You wouldn't have to push out second-story units quite as much. I'm grateful for the model. I think that you did break up I think that you did put the elevation on the north side, which I think is good. I think you should, however you proceed, you should keep that. And I'm grateful to see the one-story element in the front, because that's where it presents to the community. But I'd look at your building materials, because I don't think they do you any favors. And I think I would look at horizontal lines, or, you know, I mean, I'm not the architect, so I'm the safety guy. I worry that it's going to catch on fire, that's all. But I know that when I see other modern buildings, that there are strong horizontal lines that tie together different aspects of the building, and it gives it a sense of coherence. And I kind of don't quite see that.
Like, is there a pointer on this thing, or the, okay, I don't want to work.
You want a pointer?
Yeah, it's just,
This is very cool, by the way.
this, okay. So, like, Eduardo, here, I mean, just a minor change, well, not minor, but like if this entire line right here, instead of having this this box here, this box here, which actually, this probably is pushing right at 2411, right? Our height limit. So why not create like a low hip roof that went like this, so you had a flat element all the way across there? And I would argue you could put a flat roof here, and then from the top it could be gravel. I mean, you could do a torch down and then gravel fill it, and then that would be like visually, like that's what you would see from the windows, which would be really nice. But like a flat roof across here, or at the very least like a low pitched hip roof that appeared as if it was flat, so you get that horizontal line and you kill all this stuff here. And the top, this would have been beautiful to have like a low gable that went like, basically you have that's what this is over here, connecting to this piece. It's just you interrupted it with like this stuff. So why not create this low? And this is where you could have done that asymmetric roof that I noticed we had it on the Craftsman, and then on here in the back I think you have that going. But like, you know, you could have had that a little mid-century roof element that was like asymmetric and then really long and narrow here, kind of mimicking kind of the roof, the hill profile or something, you know. And you know, then you eliminate all this cacophony of sort of materials changing and pushing and pulling, you know, and get all that under, and then sort of this stuff becomes just a nice clean horizontal fascia with the plastered eave, you know, and you get rid of all these outriggers, you know. Like, to me that really would calm it down a lot, because there's just a lot of these heavy timbers, and I think it would help calm this down, or have it make sense, I guess, really have the parts make sense, you know. But I don't know.
If you want to see, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think everything Bob said is right on. Like, I think, you know, the north side, the front, the plan, I think the layout is working. It's stronger.
Right.
So I think there are some real positives. I just think how it's appearing isn't what sort of the plan or the layout is telling us, you know, and it's just, there's a lot happening. So I would strongly urge you to figure out like how to almost subtract, you know, take away from this and get it to something really simple. Maybe not as far as as far as Sea Ranch, where it's like, I mean, I love that project, but I mean, that's very
Train left the station on that one a long time ago.
very stark and very simple, and it's about just like one shape, but there's different site responses for that's what you get because of that. You know, here you're kind of creating artificial like shapes and stuff because you think, you know, I mean, you have a flat lot, so to speak, and you're creating these things just kind of, I don't want to say arbitrary because they are responding to south side, north side, east and west, but they don't.
Let me give everybody another example that you can all go see. All right, up on North Hermosa, above Carter, just around the bend, there is a perhaps 1960s light gray wooden, one very noticeable big volume, okay, going parallel with the street with some smaller volumes. Harwell Hamilton Harris, the architect. It is interesting. Well, number one, because we can all go look at it. Number two, because it does everything we're all talking about here tonight.
Is it on the corner of Hermosa and Highland and Auburn?
Across from the Wisteria House?
Yeah, it's
Just
just
up the street.
across the street,
across from
just up
Wisteria
the
on the
street
right-hand side.
from the
Okay, got it.
Wisteria
All right, I know
house.
what I'm doing.
And it doesn't say I got to be this preconceived style or that preconceived style. Maybe its mentality is like what you're talking about, right? In terms of just what it wanted to be for itself. But go look at it because it is and it's all one color too, right? And it's all one material. But it's very, very calm and it's very nicely organized, and it is it's really doing everything that we've been talking about doing here tonight. It's a wonderful, wonderful example, and I'd like you to go look at that. I really would.
It's a good suggestion,
Okay. It sounds like we may want to continue this to another time.
So if we continue it to a date certain, we are looking at, again, allowing for the applicant additional time to refine the design. April 18th or April 18th or May 2nd.
Hopefully May 2nd.
Applicant okay with?
For submittal.
That would be fine.
Review.
Okay. So I'll accept a motion to that.
yeah. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Thank you.
And my thanks for the model also.
Yes.
It's really, I studied it before you all came in. It was helpful. Thank you.
We are grateful for your diligence and your discipline to the process. Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, we have an additional opportunity for any person to address the Planning Commission on any item that is not on the agenda. And seeing no one, then we'll come back to the Planning Commission. Anything from commissioners to report?
I have nothing.
Everything is good? Okay. And we'll look at staff. Anything from the,
And currently, I do not have any items probably for the April 4th and 18th meeting.
really?
Possibly one on the 18th, but we'll see how their submittal turns out. So I will keep you informed.
Okay.
Do we have any code-related things or nothing?
I'm working on a number of code amendments, some of them which will come back here, general cleanup. I'm also taking an ordinance straight to the city council. It's both an urgency ordinance and non-urgency ordinance on the meeting on March 26th, and that's specific to small wireless facilities. So it's in response to state mandate requirement. So we're just adding a lot of the language that the state has imposed on local jurisdictions to the code regarding small cell.
Excellent. Okay, that's it.
That would be it for me.
Okay, and we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. That's quick.
Yay.
That went a lot better than I thought it was going to.
Oh, really? I was struggling.
You're right on. Thank you, because you guys have a vocabulary that I don't know. So
I'd like to see what a butterfly.
What exactly?
Well, you know what though, Robert?
Or the other direction.
In your discussion.
I'm really very favorable.